Let's be honest. This is a game the Panthers should have won, and they gave it away.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here live on YouTube, where I am following every Carolina Panthers game and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me right now to send in your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions for the show here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Carolina Panthers 23, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26 in overtime in a game Carolina let get away. And a game that they honestly gave away on a Sunday where for 3 quarters, they were clearly the dominant team against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were the better team against Tampa for 45 minutes, but they could not close it out in a game where Dave Canales said afterwards, it was just the things that we gave away. And speaking of all the things they gave away, let's start off by talking about the missed field goals. And, of course, we will talk about the Adam Thielen touchdown that was not ruled a touchdown at the end of the half. But before the Panthers even got there, they had 2 missed field goals by Eddy, Pinero, something we have rarely seen in Carolina. We have not seen, I believe, until or since that game a couple seasons ago on the road in Atlanta where he missed multiple kicks in a game, but it happened today. Pinero made from 47 yards to give the Panthers a 7-3 deficit in that first quarter. That was him tying Graham Gano's 41 straight make record inside Bank of America Stadium. And then after that, turned out to not be a great day for Eddy as he missed from 38 and 45 in that first half. In the 38-yarder, he had made not only 41 straight kicks within Bank of America Stadium, but he also had made 33 straight field goals from 40 yards and under. And that ended with that 38-yard miss. And there were a couple of times when Canales made a decision to kick where I wondered, was this the right decision for Carolina? They were only down 7-0. They were driving down the field against Tampa, and he opted, instead of going for it on 4th and 1, he was going to kick from 47 yards away when they're the Bucs' 29-yard line. I'm thinking to myself, why not be aggressive in that certain situation? And Canales was asked about this after the game, saying they were in a position to take points and they wanted to take points. And I understand that it's kind of become an epidemic in football, whether it's on a college level or the NFL level, where coaches just refuse to take the points when they have opportunities to take the points. But when it's 4th and 1, you're 3-8. Why not go for it in that situation, especially when you're a team that is claimed to be stubborn about running the football? Why not hand the ball off to Chuba Hubbard? Why not hand it off to Jonathan Brooks, who showed some burst in this game today? Why not run the ball in that situation? Why are you paying Robert Hunt $1 million? Why are you paying Damian Lewis $69 million if you're not going to want to run the football in that situation? But it worked out that time by them making that 47-yard field goal. But later on, when Canales was in a situation where the Panthers had 4th and 2, he once again opted for a 45-plus yard field goal, which has become automatic nowadays in the NFL, considering how good these kickers are, but it's not always automatic, especially in cold weather. Here in December in Charlotte, where it's actually been cold the last couple of days, that should be a field goal Eddy Pinero should make. Yes, I totally understand that. He entered today as, I believe, the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL. And Justin Tucker is falling apart before our eyes up there in Baltimore. He still attempted 300-plus more field goals than Pinero, but statistically, Pinero is the all-time greatest when it comes to field goal accuracy in the NFL. At least he was heading into this week's game, and he misses 2 critical field goals that take 6 points off the board for the Carolina Panthers in a first half where, again, They were the better team. They were dominant. The defense was playing one of its better games of the season in that first half and later on in that third quarter. We'll talk more about the defense in a moment here. But those two decisions to decide, now we're not going to kick. One time it worked for them, getting the 3 points. The other time it did not work for them. And there were boos. Both of those opportunities where they decided to kick on 4th and 1, made the field goal, and decided to kick on 4th and 2 and missed. There were boos raining down from the stands. I just don't understand why not be more aggressive in those situations. I can understand if it's 4th and 5, go ahead and kick it, because I think a lot of times coaches are way too aggressive in those situations, even if the analytics, the nerds back at home in their basements are telling you, you're an idiot if you don't go for it in a situation. Okay, well, are you weighing all of what's happening, who's available, who's not available, the win conditions, or just your computer told you to do that? So I can understand from that perspective, but those are kicks Eddy's got to make, and that's 6 points right off the board that the Panthers should have absolutely had. Now, the Adam Thielen one, I don't quite understand, rather, why that was not ruled a touchdown. And Dave said after the game that it was ruled an incompletion on the field, which means they need to have indisputable video evidence to overturn that call. And for whatever reason, even though Adam Thielen appeared with my eyes, and I assume your process blue covered glasses eyes as well, that he caught the ball, had it in his hands, got a foot down, got the elbow down. That counts as 2 feet down, and it looked like he brought it in. Did not see a bobble, but there was a ref there in the shot that they were showing us on Fox. And there was another angle they tried to show us that didn't really show you whether he caught it. And according to Mike Pinero on the Fox broadcast, the NFL apparently didn't have any other better angles to go back and to change that call, and they still had the call on the field, which is insane to me that this billion-dollar industry, this business that plays games in Germany, plays in Brazil, all across the world, has all this money flowing in all year long, doesn't have the proper angle to see whether Adam Thielen caught the football in that situation. How does that make sense? It's not like he is in a pile at the goal line where you can't quite see where the football is. There's just one ref and Adam Thielen out there. There's not a single camera that can show you whether he caught the ball or not. Clearly, to me, it looked like he caught it. And I don't think you need another angle to know whether he caught it. Like, clear as day. And that's the problem with replay. It's supposed to be for clear and obvious errors. That, to me, was clear and obvious. You don't need indisputable video evidence. It's right there in front of you. And the ref is sitting there, too. He's got to make those calls. That's one thing about the replay I hate, too, is the refs bail themselves out. And they lean on it far too much. Like in sports like basketball, they certainly do it way too much. The NFL has it better than a lot of the other sports and leagues out there across the world. But still, you're standing right there. You should be able to see whether he caught the football, right? If you want to see whether he got his foot down or not, like, I don't think that was more of a question. I don't think whether he caught it was a question. Whether he had enough body parts down in bounds was the question to me. And right then and there is 4 points off the board, Carolina having to kick a field goal. So 10 points off the board for the Panthers in a game where they should have been up 23-10 at halftime. If you're up 2 touchdowns, that completely changes the approach for Tampa Bay the rest of the way. And that was brutal to not have that. And even in that situation, where also, let's understand this, Thielen bobbled the football, catch the damn ball, and there's not even a conversation about it at all. He should have caught it straight up and not bobbled it, but he didn't. And then when you do situations like that or things like that, then you leave it to the ref's interpretation. And like today, you get screwed. But the Panthers didn't necessarily lose this game because of the officials. That's 4 points that they missed out on. But remember, missed field goals from 38 and 45, 2 kicks they should make. Go back to in the fourth quarter. Tampa Bay is down, or is up rather. What are that? 17-16. If Carolina makes those field goals, Tampa is down 5 points in that game. They get stopped on a 3rd and 1, lose about 4 or 5 yards on that play, and opt to kick a field goal to make it 20-16. Had it been 22-17, like it should have been, had Pinero made the kicks, then Tampa has to go for it in that situation and try to score a touchdown. Instead, they're able to kick a field goal, go up 4 points, and force Carolina then to go down the field and to tie it up, which Bryce Young did. looking like he had his 5th career game-winning touchdown drive and finally a drive or game-winning drive where finally it was going to be him scoring a touchdown, not needing a field goal to win it, to walk off. It was just going to be Bryce take him down the field, winning the game. 2 weeks in a row, they needed Bryce to do it. He got down the field, tied the game last against Kansas City, was able to tie the game again this week, take the lead this week against Tampa Bay. When we're going to talk more about him, what he's done, just got to talk about other things in the game and kind of how Carolina let this one slip away, a game that they absolutely should have won against Tampa, who did not look good at all today at Bank of America Stadium, aside from, Bucky Irving in the run game in that fourth quarter. You get to that situation, you win the game. Maybe you stop them on 4th down, maybe they convert. Either way, all you would need is a field goal, and instead you get a touchdown, and then Tampa has to go down the field and score a touchdown instead of only needing a field goal. So those 2 missed field goals, I look at that as far worse. Those are things you can control. You can't control whether the officials are going to get the call right on the field, whether it's a catch or not. Now, you can control the ball first and foremost before bobbling it and then leaving it in the officials' hands, but you can control those field goals, and the Panthers did not control it. Eddy Pinero did not control it, and he cost his team the game in that situation on Sunday. Now, there's more that happened to lead to the loss. Red zone issues continued. Last week, Carolina was 2 for 6 in the red zone. Today, they were 1 for 4 in the red zone. 3 out of 10 the last 2 weeks. And this is a team that, surprisingly, because I'm looking at it, let's go back. We talked about this on Friday, finished in the red zone. They're 10th in the NFL at 58.06% of their trips turning into touchdowns this year. 10th in the NFL in the last 2 weeks. They've only converted 30% of them. So they're obviously going to drop statistically when it comes to their red zone touchdown percentage. That is why they have not won these games the last 2 weeks. They have not finished in the red zone. And it's not like Kansas City had a lot of success last week because they were 2 for 5. And it's not like Tampa Bay had necessarily a ton of success today, as they ended up being 2 for 5 as well in the red zone. And you look at goal-to-go situations, Carolina only got 1 of those today, and they were 0 for 1 in goal-to-go situations. Tampa was 2 for 4. So the Panthers were 1 for 4 in the red zone, 0 for 1 in goal-to-go situations. Tampa was 2 for 5 in the red zone, 2 for 4 in goal-to-go situations. And the team that had the better percentage is the team that ended up winning this game, like it was last week against the Kansas City Chiefs team, where Carolina went toe-to-toe with them. So it's tough. Canales said it. It was just the things that we gave away. Gave it away to miss field goals, gave it away in a way by not hauling in that catch and bobbling it and letting officials then have to decide whether you caught it or not, which to me very clearly felt like a catch and should have been a catch. But if you just hold on to the ball first and foremost, you're not in that situation. And I know you're saying, don't blame Adam Thielen for the refs getting it wrong. He should have caught the ball, guys. He did catch it, I think, but he should have just caught it the first time, and we're not even sitting here talking about it at all. Things that you can control. They had a chance to control it. And then the worst one at the end of the day, the fumble by Chuba Hubbard. Thielen makes an outstanding one-handed catch after Tampa missed that 55-yard field goal, gives Carolina the ball at their own 45. Bryce Young on 3rd down, sitting there in the pocket against the blitz yet again. Things he's done over the last month of the season. Delivers the ball. Thielen adjusts to it, brings in with one hand. I don't know if he's a lefty or not, but brings it on with his left hand, catches it, and you're thinking, all right, here we go. Carolina's going to kick the field goal, going to win this game. They might have given it away, but they're going to show that grit, show they've turned the corner, get into a 4-8 situation where there'd only be 2 games back in the division and right there for another game against Atlanta and also against Tampa, and maybe go on this run on the final 7 games or whatever, I guess if you want to count the last couple weeks of the season. And Chuba Hubbard fumbles the next play. It's a strip. He had 2 hands on the ball, just gets it ripped out there. Tampa picks it up, and I thought for a second Yaya Diaby, who just stupid, you got to fall on it. He decided he was going to try and scoop it. I thought he was not going to get it. Carolina's going to get it back and get away with it. But instead, as we saw, Tampa recovered, went down the field. Rashad White ran it down 38 yards down the sideline to kick a field goal. They walk off. They're 6-6, tied for the division. Carolina's 3-9, and I would think no longer within any shot at winning the NFC South at this point in time, unless they are going to upset the Philadelphia Eagles next week and then win out the rest of the way from there. Going to be tough with tiebreakers, situations like that, for that to happen. But a game they should have had, but they get away for the 2nd week in a row. I'm not going to say they should have beaten Kansas City, but they certainly could have beaten Kansas City. I'm going to say today that they should have beaten Tampa Bay, but unfortunately they don't, as they fall in overtime 26-23 against the division rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The defense, I thought, was playing one of its best games of the season until they weren't. But also, still positives. Talk about the defense also. Bryce Young continues to show it, and it looks like, according to Rapport and some other reporters out there, that he's going to be a guy in 2025. Of course, got to do it 5 more weeks. We'll talk about more of that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Hey, Locked On Panther fans, I know you're like me. Your holiday shopping list is, let's just say, far from complete. Well, if that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for the passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift. Created by and used by the Gronkowski brothers, Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game of workout bottles, and this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% off your order. Their kitchen-grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. A patented twist-in agitator that breaks up powders but is silent when you shake it instead of the annoying ball. The agitator works as a strainer as well, makes it a very solid tailgating cup to mix drinks. Order your team-branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or watching a movie with family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get licensed with a match with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Back here on Locked On Panthers, Carolina Panthers for the second week in a row, shoulda, coulda, woulda, as they do not get a win at home against Tampa Bay, falling to 3-9 on the season, losing 26-23 in overtime. And the defense, man, they've had their ups, they've had their downs this season, and today, for the most part, wasn't up for the Carolina Panthers defense. When you look at what they were able to do against Baker Mayfield and that Bucs offense and that Liam Cohen offense that we were told by Bucs linebacker Savasier Dennis back in August was far more complex, was a better offense than what Dave Canales was able to put out there in Tampa a year ago and what he's been putting out there even before the season started here in Carolina. Well, they were holding down that Tampa Bay Bucs offense. It was punt, touchdown, punt, field goal, interception, end of the half at halftime, only giving up 10 points. Then in the third quarter, it was punt, interception. The defense was playing phenomenal. They had 4 sacks today. They had 2 takeaways, should have had 3 takeaways. Jordan Fuller dropped an interception thrown right to him, but we did see Charles Smith-Wade, who started in place of Dane Jackson, who was brutal last week in that loss against Kansas City. He got his first career interception in the NFL. Xavier Woods had a ball thrown exactly right to him as well. He got an interception, setting up Carolina in a position to get points as they got a field goal, I believe, on that one. They missed the field goal, so only getting 3 points off turnovers today. Not ideal. That's kind of gone with the theme that we talked about today and last week, not finishing drives. And they've had those opportunities this season as well, where I believe only once, maybe twice this season, Carolina has gotten a takeaway and then converted that into 7 points or 6 points, touchdown, field goal, whatever, 7 points afterwards. That did not happen today, but I'm not necessarily only blaming the offense or defense in the situations, but complementary football, that has to happen. Getting something is better than getting nothing, but defensively, again, it was punt, touchdown, punt, field goal, interception, end of half. Only 10 points allowed by the Panthers defense in that first half. Then the third quarter, it was punt, interception. Tampa could not do anything. They had 36 yards there in that third quarter. And going into the fourth quarter, the Panthers had 282 yards to Tampa's 181 yards total offense in those first 3 quarters. Tampa ended the game with 445 yards to Carolina's 367 yards. So that means Tampa, if you're doing the math, had 264 yards in the fourth quarter in overtime to end up winning this game. In the fourth quarter alone, they had 176 yards and scored on all 3 drives, going touchdown, field goal to end up taking that game into overtime. So the Panthers defense, while they played better today for 3 quarters, they looked good, and we can see the improvement as they've gotten healthier. They've started to find roles, and they're not going to be good against the run. They gave up 236 yards in this game. I had someone DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council. Oh, well, the run defense not looking great. I'm like, buddy, it's week 13. This run defense is not going to get better. This is just who they're going to be. And the hope was, after the way the Panthers defense played against New Orleans, who's not good, but we understand, the Panthers still need to show that they can stop not a good offense. And they did that day, when there's been times this season that has not been the case. They went out there and stopped the Giants again. Not great. Daniel Jones is now on the practice squad of the Vikings, but still, they had a good day. They had 3 takeaways. All of them were in critical situations, and they also gave up that lead, reminiscent to what we saw today, where they gave up the lead. They're up, I think, 17-7, and I was sitting there feeling pretty confident Carolina's not going to give this game away. It was overtime, and the Giants got the ball back to start out the overtime in that same situation, but they fumbled immediately. Carolina they caused not a turnover, but they caused, well, I guess it was a turnover in a way with the missed field goal. What they get to stop there, and they gave their offense an opportunity to get the ball back and to go down there and win the game with a field goal, which did not work out as Chuba Hubbard fumbled after Adam Thielen made that excellent catch. But they played overall, I thought, a good game until they just didn't get the stops in the fourth quarter when they had the game in control. And overtime, they get to stop at first, don't get to stop at the end of the day. It's tough to see, because I think Ejiro Evero is a good DC. I'll reiterate, he had more interest this past coaching cycle than the guy who is his head coach here in Carolina, Dave Canales. If he was available, he would either be in LA or in Green Bay. He was going to get one of those jobs, and maybe he'll be available after the season. I think the way they played the last couple of weeks and what Dave Canales kind of said, that he likes that scheme. It's just the personnel, or the lack thereof of personnel with the injuries they've had this season. They've gotten better. They have now had, I believe, 9 sacks for the last 2 weeks. And this is the team that I think going into like a week ago only had like 13 or 14 sacks in the NFL period. They now have 12 takeaways on the season. They had 11 takeaways all of last year. So they're squarely right there in the middle of the NFL when it comes to takeaways this season. So they've gotten better over the last couple of weeks. It's still by no means a good defense. It's still not a good defense at all. It's a bad defense, but they have been better as they've gotten healthier. And you look at one of those drives too, really the 2 scoring drives that Tampa had back to back there, and they had 3 of them, I know, but the 2 ones that they had before they had to really throw it down the field and dink and dunk, and Carolina sat back and allowed them to do that, to kick that 51-yarder to tie it and send it overtime. Bucky Irving took over. He got the ball 8 times on their 11-play drive, 41 yards rushing, 12 receiving, so 53 yards on that drive. Then he had 60 more yards on the next drive, where he had, I think, a 43 or 48-yard rushing attempt. So 113 yards on 2 drives in the fourth quarter from Bucky Irving, and we didn't see him the rest of the game, as he had a heating pad, look like, around his waist there in overtime where he was not playing. Like, that's a guy who went out there and you basically let beat you and send that game into overtime, even though Bryce took him down the field, hit Thielen. They had it, and the defense gave it up. So, yeah, that's tough to see. Thought overall, 3 quarters, played a really good game. Fourth quarter, bad quarter. Overtime, made the stop that they needed. The offense just fumbled it. And then after that, you're asking this defense far too much to ask them to get 2 stops. And typically in overtime, you need your defense to get 1 stop, and then your offense got to go out there and compliment them and win the game. Asking your defense to get 2 stops in overtime, while it was necessary today, that's not something that should happen. Your offense has got to close the game out. So there were positives. The 4 sacks, Maury Barno making his debut after tearing his ACL last year, week 16 against Green Bay. He gets a sack in this game. The 2 takeaways, Josh Smith-Wade getting that interception as he replaces Dane Jackson there in the slot. And Tampa, too, they're only 2 for 12 on 3rd down in this game and did not convert a 3rd down until 9:38 left in the game. Last week, we talked about Kansas City not punting the ball until 7 minutes left. Well, Tampa had to punt a lot, and they could not even stay on the field until 9:38 left in the game. So plenty of positives to look at, but a defense that just did not quite do enough in the fourth quarter and overtime to help the Carolina Panthers get the win today at home as they fall 26-23 in OT against the Bucs, now 3-9 this season. So we talked all about what they gave away, but clearly based off the last couple of weeks, the Panthers may have something moving forward in Bryce Young. And in a season where they were never going to the playoffs, that's all that really matters. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And looking over at FanDuel right now, the Panthers have opened up as 12.5-point underdogs on the road next week in Philadelphia. The Eagles are one of the hottest, if not the hottest team in the NFL. They win again. They've won 8 straight, beating the Ravens today. I don't know where that game was played, but beating them somewhere on I-95 as those two cities are connected by the interstate. The Panthers plus 570 money line. The over-under set at 44.5. So go over there, check that out. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Football season is back, and the best way to get to games this fall is with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and the holidays coming around, go to Game Time. Use our code, get $20 off, and get some tickets to the Panthers in the final weeks of the season. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers. Shout out to the 173 people live with me today following the Carolina Panthers 26-23 overtime loss, where Dave Canales said after the game, it was just things that we gave away. They gave away with the missed field goals. They gave the refs an opportunity to screw them, even though the refs completely got it wrong by Adam Thielen. But if he catches it, doesn't bobble. Even though I believe he caught it, we don't even have to have the conversation right now. So 10 points off the board there in the first half. 4 of them we can attribute mainly to their officiating not getting it right. Wise replay there if you're not going to get what I believe was obvious, and I'm sure all of you believe was obvious too, but of course we're biased. Clearly it felt like it was a touchdown, and even non-biased parties I'm sure felt like that should have been a touchdown. The red zone issues, they were there last week, they were again today. 3 for 10 the last 2 weeks in the red zone, 0 for 1 today in the goal-to-go situation. Tampa had a better percentages there in the red zone and the goal-to-go situations. The Chuba Hubbard takeaway or fumble, really, the giveaway. And after the Panthers had 2 takeaways, had 4 sacks in this game. That's 9 sacks for the last 2 weeks. Some good things that we saw so across the board. And, that's the encouraging thing. And that's also the frustrating thing. No one wants to sit here and talk about moral victories. To me, this is not a moral victory at all. Last week against Kansas City, and to see your quarterback play as well as he did against that defense, against a team that they got away with it again on Black Friday, the Chiefs did, and they're already in the playoffs, but the team that has won the Super Bowl the last 2 years with Mahomes, with Reed, with Kelsey, and all that goes into the Kansas City Chiefs and who they are today, you can take that as a moral victory because that's a game that you're not supposed to win, but a game you could have won. Today, against a divisional opponent where the door is slightly ajar for you to go in there and potentially, if you get on a nice hot streak at the end of the season, to possibly turn your entire season around, this is not a moral victory. The Panthers should have won this game, as they already illustrated to you by the yardage advantage they had through 3 quarters and what they were not allowing defensively in that first half and how they were there in position to get 6 points off of field goals and get those 4 points as well if that touchdown is correctly called for Adam Thielen. They were in position to win this game, and they should have won the game, but they didn't. So that's the frustrating part about everything that we saw today, but the encouraging part is the way that they did play defensively through 3 quarters, the way that they did play on offense, and how Bryce Young continues to grow. And that, again, is the main story, even if I'm talking about it in the final segment of this show. That still is the main thing about what comes from this game. The Panthers are 3-9. Okay, not ideal. Still, I think 3 wins are out there. They can beat this Bucs team, as we just saw. They can beat the Falcons. Arizona, they can beat. Philadelphia, probably going to be tough. There are wins out there the rest of the season. I still feel like they can triple their win total, something we talked about during the offseason way back in August. I feel like that's possible in large part because of the way Bryce Young has played over the last couple of weeks in earning this job. And according to Ian Rappaport, likely earning the position in 2025. And if he plays like he has last week, this week, and even with not the great passing performances against the Saints and Giants in those wins, how can he not be the quarterback in 2025? He would be the guy. And hand up, I thought it was over for Bryce Young. I truly did. After 2 weeks, I didn't like the decision to bench him at all. Why bring in Dave Canales? Why bring in Deontay Johnson, draft all these weapons offensively if you're not going to allow Bryce Young the time to work with them throughout the season and try to play his way through it? And when Andy Dalton came in, you saw how the team responded. You saw Andy Dalton played and just the way that Canales called the game. And it felt like it was Andy Dalton's team. And I just felt like, how do you go back to Bryce Young in this situation? You can't go back to him if Andy's going to play like that. And I didn't think Andy Dalton was going to throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns every single week. But if he was going to play well enough to give you a chance, a team to win, and you looked at how Bryce played, and you look at the year prior as well, which you can't ignore it, how do you go back to him? And they weren't. They weren't. He had every opportunity to say that maybe I'll go back to Bryce. He had every opportunity to say it's about development. No, it was about the team. It was about Andy Dalton. Those were Dave Canales' words. So while I maybe shouldn't have been speaking in absolute saying it's over for Bryce Young, even though if you look at the recent history, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, they typically don't get a second chance. They typically don't stick around. But it looks like Bryce Young has played his way out of it and has played his way into the role the next 5 weeks and in 2025. So yeah, I got it wrong. Dave Canales also maybe got it wrong because he wasn't going back to him. It took a car accident to even be in this situation. So I'm not inclined to give him his just due, even if he has opened the offense the last couple of weeks as Bryce has gained confidence in himself. Dave's gained confidence in him. The team has gained confidence and respect in Bryce on the field and in the locker room of his leadership, the speech he gave last week. So he's grown. Maybe this is the master plan all along. But it's hard to really feel that way when the day prior to Andy Dalton getting injured, he refused to say Bryce Young's name and kept saying Andy's going to start against Denver. I don't know. It doesn't really matter at this point in time, really, because as long as Bryce Young goes out there and goes 2 for 46, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, one of them being a rushing touchdowns and an 83.4 passer rating, who really cares how we got here? It doesn't matter at the end of the day if this is who Bryce Young is going to be for the Panthers moving forward. Like, that's it. We can sit here, we can squabble about who believed in Bryce, who didn't believe in Bryce, who got it right, who got it wrong, whether Canales ever wanted to give him a second chance or not. Doesn't really matter when Bryce Young is throwing for a career-high 186 in the first half. It is efficient. It is standing there in the pocket against the blitz, delivering the football and showing the confidence that he's shown so far and the athleticism and all of the things that we saw at Alabama. Bama Bryce is here, it looks like. Don't want to say he's here. Don't want to say he's arrived. Just going to be a little patient. Don't want to get in a corner again. But it feels like this is the guy moving forward that we're going to get. We'll see. We'll see. Philadelphia against Vic Fangio next week will be another test. He's going to face him the rest of the season, and it looks like again in 2025 as the guy for Carolina as their starter next year. And the Panthers will have a big decision to make if they do decide to go back to Bryce in 2025 after that season based on how he plays or whether they want to give him the 5th-year option and decide that he is going to be their franchise quarterback moving forward. He's still got to earn it. And it's always should have been a 3-year proposition, which is why I didn't love the benching after 2 weeks, even though it seems to have done him everything that you would have hoped it would have done for him, even if the coach refused to say that's what it was about. But still, Bryce Young's played well the last couple of weeks. That gives people hope more than anything. You're frustrated by the result because you know this team should have won this game. But you're hopeful because the quarterback is giving you something to be hopeful for and showing you that maybe, just maybe, the Panthers did not make a massive mistake 18 so months ago, back in April 2024, when they decided to take him over CJ Stroud. Like, CJ was great last year. I'm not going to sit here and say, watch a bunch of Texans games because I don't. So I don't know how he's really playing this year. I know that team has kind of struggled a little bit. Maybe he's regressed. whatever. Not important to me. What's important is that Bryce Young's progressed. And progress is not always linear, as we're seeing right now with Bryce Young. You would have thought after that Packers game last year, here he is. This is the guy moving forward. Next week, they were terrible. Didn't score a point against a Jags team that was falling apart. And this year, he put together a good performance against the Saints, against the Giants, against the Chiefs, and now against Tampa. 4 weeks in a row. It's a pattern. It's a trend. Feels like this might be who he's going to be moving forward, but there's still 5 more weeks left to play and a whole nother season potentially for Bryce Young to really solidify his spot here in Carolina. And I'm happy for the guy. Happy for you, happy for the organization that it looks like they may have gotten this right after all the jeering, all of the jokes, and all of the man, it doesn't even matter. It looks like they got it right. Maybe. Looks like they might have gotten it right based off of how he's played the last couple of weeks. So good for Bryce Young. But damn, they should have won this game today. All right, it's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, again, Julian Council. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Shout out to the 222 people and all the others who are here live with me tonight on YouTube, where I am following every Panthers game, either at me or DM me to get your questions in for the weekly Wednesday mailbag here on Locked On Panthers. Go ahead and do that right now over on Twitter at Julian Council. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always, and forever keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all on Tuesday.